Zara had no idea she was about to be the most expensive baby in history. In a small, cramped apartment above a noodle shop in downtown New York, Lien was lying in a hospital bed, muttering to herself as she tried to juggle an urgent work deadline with the fact that she was in labor. This wasn't supposed to happen. She had planned it out, barely, but still, so that her little hybrid daughter would arrive just after the presentation, just after the conference. "I told you," Lien huffed, scowling at the clock on the wall. "I told you I can't afford to have a baby right now." A light, melodic voice interrupted her muttering. "You're doing great, Lien. You're almost there." Lien looked up in a daze at Crone, Zara's alien father, standing beside the bed. He was a sight to behold, his long, glistening skin like smooth silver, his 6 fingers on each hand twitching in a way that made him seem both elegant and unsettling at the same time. But it wasn't his appearance that had Lien ready to lose her mind, it was his complete and utter lack of any understanding about how childbirth worked. Crone had only read about human labor in textbooks, written by humans who, quite frankly, were terrible at explaining anything. "This is not going according to plan," Lien muttered. Crone, ever the optimist, tilted his head. "But, Lien, it is exactly what is supposed to happen. Birth is a most efficient process. I have studied." "Oh, please, Crone," Lien snapped, "this is not efficient, this is chaos." Crone took a cautious step back. His antennas, small but remarkably expressive, tucked neatly beneath his bald head as if embarrassed. "I'll just stand over here, then." Lien gritted her teeth and squeezed his hand for emphasis. "I swear, Crone, if you talk about efficiency one more time, I will." That was when Zara decided to make her grand entrance, as if the universe itself had decided to cut through the tension with perfect comedic timing. There was a sudden, brief silence in the room before Zara's first cry. But it wasn't a normal cry. No, it was more like the sound of a foghorn, with a definite vibration to it that rattled the walls. Is that normal?" Crone asked, cocking his head to one side, his 3 amber eyes blinking in unison. Lien groaned. "Oh, it's normal, all right. Just great." She rolled her eyes, but a smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. It was impossible not to be amused, even in the middle of what should have been a stressful, world-shattering event. Crone stepped forward with a sudden burst of excitement. "Ah! This is perfect. The first sound from our child is an amazing display of resonance. This is a sign of future greatness." Lien barely managed to catch the baby as Zara shot out like a rocket into her arms. She looked down at her daughter, eyes wide, and let out a shaky laugh. "I don't know whether to laugh or cry," Lien muttered, as Zara let out another foghorn-like cry. Crone hovered over them, completely transfixed. How much did she weigh? What are the human units for weight? How many grams of mass? Lien, exhausted but too amused to let it slide, shot him a look. "Crone, if you ask me one more question about this baby in alien units, I swear I'll never let you hold her again." Crone blinked. "Ah. Yes. Apologies. I will learn your Earth units, in time." He nodded sagely, as though he had just received the most important wisdom of the universe. Zara didn't really know what she was, at least not at first. To her, Earth was just Earth, and the blurry images of the alien world Crone came from were just something her parents talked about. She loved both her human and alien sides, although, at times, it seemed like they weren't quite on the same page. Lien was tough but loving, a scientist who spent long hours in a lab, balancing equations, watching diplomatic negotiations unfold on her screens. She would spend hours telling Zara about Earth's endless cultures, its complex history, its chaotic politics. Humanity is a mess, Lien would say, but it's also a miracle. It's messy, but it works. Crone, on the other hand, was far less invested in the mess of humanity. His species, known as the Vorthons, were well known for their pure logic and emphasis on structure. While Lien argued over which college Zara should attend, Crone would simply say, "There is only one path to success: reason." Zara, standing in the middle of her mother's ideals and her father's cold, flawless logic, often found herself trying to make sense of it all. At school, things were no better. She was both the tallest and the most different. Her elongated limbs, faint silver skin that shimmered under the sunlight, and strangely luminous eyes often drew attention. "Why are you so weird?" one kid asked in the cafeteria one day, poking at her neon green lunch, a blend of human ingredients and alien delicacies. Zara just blinked, wondering why humans insisted on making everything a drama. She shrugged and, with a grin, replied, "I'm just a work in progress." But it wasn't just the kids who were confused. Zara herself was starting to feel the strain of being two people in one. Her alien side, the one that craved silence and logic, often fought with her human side, the one that loved art, the smell of fresh grass, and the beauty of chaotic street festivals. Her friends didn't understand, and neither did her alien family. Crone tried to be supportive, but all he really knew how to do was offer her more data on intergalactic peace treaties. Zara's life started to change when she turned 14. Her mother, Lien, was chosen as one of the lead diplomats for the Peace Initiative project, a program set to establish cooperation between Earth and Crone's alien species. As the hybrid child of both races, Zara was seen as the symbol of this collaboration, the bridge between worlds. Lien, forever busy with her work, wasn't thrilled about Zara's newfound role. "You're going to be the face of this program, Zara," Lien said one evening, looking at her daughter over the rim of her coffee cup. "I know it's a lot. But you're going to have to get used to the attention." Zara felt her stomach drop. She didn't want to be the face of anything. She didn't want to have to represent two species. She didn't even know if she liked either of them half the time. "What if I don't want to do this?" Zara asked, pacing the kitchen. "What if I don't want to be the symbol? I'm just me. I'm not anyone's symbol. I'm Zara." Lien sighed but gave her a tired smile. "That's the thing, sweetie. You're not just anyone. You're both. And maybe that's what makes you the perfect person for the job." Crone, who had been hovering in the background, suddenly spoke up, "It is the perfect role for you, Zara. You are the future of both our peoples." His three eyes gleamed in the dim light. "The peace you will bring will be unlike anything either species has ever known." Zara, ever the realist, snorted. "Great. No pressure or anything." Zara's first real encounter with the alien diplomats came a month later. She found herself sitting at a massive round table in a sleek, futuristic conference hall. Across from her were towering Vorthon leaders, with skin that gleamed like polished metal, their voices cool and precise. "Zara," one of them said, their voice like a calm breeze, "we are intrigued by your hybrid nature. We believe it will pave the way for a new era of interspecies cooperation." Zara wanted to scream. She didn't want to be the future or the bridge. She was just a confused teenager who liked pop music, human food, and the occasional escape from everything, but she knew she couldn't back down. "Not now." With a deep breath, she spoke up. "You know what? I'm not your idealized peacekeeper. I'm a mess. A weird, mixed-up mess. But sometimes, that's what the world needs. A little chaos. For a moment, the entire room was silent. Then, to Zara's surprise, the Vorthan leaders all nodded in agreement. It was the first time she realized that maybe, just maybe, her hybrid nature wasn't a curse, it was the answer. Zara stood up from the table, feeling her knees tremble slightly. It wasn't just the sheer weight of the situation, or the fact that she was speaking to a room full of cold, logical alien diplomats. It was the reality that she might actually be able to make a difference, even though she still didn't fully understand how. She cleared her throat and looked at the assembly, who were now watching her with curious, unreadable eyes. Look, all I'm saying is, we can't just pretend everything's fine, Zara continued, finding her voice now. We can't ignore the messes we've made. Human or alien, it doesn't matter. There's always going to be something chaotic, something unplanned. And that's okay. The room remained silent, the air thick with tension, but Zara could feel a shift. It wasn't a dramatic, Hollywood-style, aha, moment, but it was a subtle shift, like the ripple of water when a stone is thrown in. One of the Vorthans, a tall, slender diplomat with glistening skin like polished chrome, spoke up. His voice was calm but carried the weight of ages. Zara, your words are unexpected. The Vorthan people value order, predictability. Yet you speak of chaos. Zara nodded slowly, feeling the weight of the conversation sink in. She hadn't expected to be this honest, this blunt. But something about the Vorthans made it impossible to sugarcoat the truth. Yeah. I do. Because maybe chaos is where real progress happens. Maybe we need to let things get messy sometimes. If we only focus on perfection, we'll miss the chance to actually learn from each other. She paused, looking at the alien faces around her. And honestly, if you keep waiting for some perfect moment to come along before you make a move, you might miss the only chance you've got. The silence that followed felt like it lasted hours, but Zara didn't back down. For the first time, she felt like she wasn't just performing a role assigned to her. She was speaking her truth, in a room full of beings who were so different, and yet, in that moment, so alike. Finally, the diplomat spoke again, his tone slightly softer than before. Perhaps there is more to your hybrid nature than we have realized. We will consider your words carefully, Zara. Zara nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility shift off her shoulders, just a little. She had made her point. She wasn't a perfect diplomat. She wasn't a flawless hybrid. But she had been real, and that, she thought, might just be enough. Back in New York, things didn't get any easier. Zara was back to school the next day, facing the usual barrage of questions, odd stares, and the quiet whispers that followed her everywhere. At lunch, she sat alone, poking at her half-Earth, half-alien meal, a strange mixture of sushi and something that Crone had called Vorthan zello, a gelatinous substance that was supposed to be nutritionally superior, but tasted like wet cardboard. Her best friend, Kelsey, finally approached her, sitting down across from Zara. Kelsey was one of the few people who had never made her feel like an alien, though, to be fair, Kelsey was also the kind of person who wore neon pink sneakers and could start a conversation with a brick wall. So, Kelsey said, pulling off a bite of what looked like an entirely human sandwich, how was the peace talk? Did you get to meet any cute aliens? Zara rolled her eyes, even as a smile tugged at her lips. Yeah, a whole room full. But none of them were my type, if that's what you're asking. Kelsey raised an eyebrow. So, how'd it go? You know, With the peace stuff? Zara sighed, putting her fork down. She hadn't told Kelsey the full truth about what had happened. It was hard to explain something so complex to someone who had never had to deal with being torn between two worlds. But she decided to give it a shot. It was different. I mean, it's not like there was this big aha moment or anything. It was just a bunch of talking, really. Everyone just wants things to be perfect, to be ordered, you know? And sometimes, that just doesn't work. Kelsey blinked, clearly trying to digest Zara's words. Wait, so you're saying, the peace process is, like, super disorganized? Zara chuckled. Exactly. Everyone's too busy trying to fit things into neat little boxes. But the truth is, nothing fits into boxes. Not people, not peace, not even aliens. Kelsey leaned back in her chair, considering that. Huh. I mean, that makes sense. But, is that your way of saying you didn't end up being the Peace Queen or whatever? Peace Queen? Zara laughed, shaking her head. Hardly. I'm just me, Kelsey. And maybe that's enough. At least, I hope it is. Kelsey didn't press her for more details. She understood Zara's need for space. Everyone had their own way of dealing with the pressure. But as Zara looked around the cafeteria, she realized she was more at peace with herself than she had been before. She wasn't just a symbol. She wasn't just a bridge between two civilizations. She was Zara, an imperfect mess of contradictions, just like everyone else. And maybe that was the most human thing she could be. The months rolled by, and Zara's role in the peace process deepened. She was tasked with representing Earth in a variety of diplomatic meetings, sometimes on Earth, sometimes on Krone's home planet, Vortha. Each time, she was reminded just how different the two species were. On Vortha, everything was about logic, order, and efficiency. The Vorthans' conversations were cold, deliberate, their every word calculated. It was hard for Zara to breathe in that atmosphere, where emotion was a foreign concept and anything even remotely resembling humor was met with a puzzled silence. Earth was no better, though. The human side of things was messy, always chaotic, filled with contradictions. But Zara had come to realize something important. She could find her way through the chaos, even when the world around her didn't make sense. She wasn't a perfect bridge between two cultures. She was just herself. And that was enough. The breakthrough came when Earth and Vortha finally agreed to a joint summit. Both sides were on edge, their distrust palpable. Zara stood at the front of the conference hall, watching as the leaders of both species faced each other across a long, sleek table. It was one of those moments when everything could go wrong. For a moment, she hesitated. What if she couldn't make it work? What if her entire life was one big mistake? But then, she remembered something. She remembered the alien dance she had done at the talent show, the time she'd mixed up human breakdance moves with alien rituals and accidentally created something amazing. Maybe that was the answer. Maybe peace wasn't about being perfect. It was about embracing the imperfections, the messes, the chaos. Zara smiled, stepped forward, and opened her mouth. It wasn't the perfect speech. But it was real. We're not perfect, Zara said, her voice clear, strong. None of us are. We're all messy, all flawed, all just trying to make it work. And that's okay. Because if we can accept each other's messes, maybe that's the real peace we're after. For the first time in years, she felt like she was in the right place, at the right time. She didn't need to be the perfect representative of either side. She just needed to be herself, and somehow, that was enough. The peace talks between Earth and Vortha finally came to a successful conclusion. Both species agreed to further cooperation, not because they had become perfect allies, but because they had begun to understand the value of imperfection. Zara had become the unlikely symbol of that understanding. As she walked out of the summit, her heart light with a sense of accomplishment, she found Crone waiting for her outside. His glowing skin shimmered in the light as he gave her a small, pleased smile. "You did it, Zara," Crone said. Zara shrugged, looking out over the city, watching as the sun dipped below the skyline. "We did it. All of us." And for the first time, Zara felt at peace with the world she had to bridge. Maybe chaos, after all, wasn't something to fear. Maybe it was the key to everything. The end.